Yeah, do you live here, man?
I do.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna sit.
We're here.
Questions? Have lots of questions? Okay. Talk slowly. Yeah.
So, you want to help me round up?
Sure. You.
Yeah. You don't mind crossing my
Like, no, it's no problem. To get it, keep it sound. Need to be Sherpa to the top of the mountain. Is it a mountain? It's like a jump to slow. Sherpa. Ember Sherpa. Well, a little bit of prodding.
It's always a special but actually, ironically, like scope down requirements. It's a kind of non-Everest, like some person. So this can be. So I have put one slide on. Because it's like, man, you guys can totally yeah, we can.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're kind of interested in
Yeah.
well, the front end
Are you using Angular?
yeah.
Are you using Angular?
Like with
It's not about upgrading. It's about like switching. So it's like if you're gonna go to Angular, you might as well choose it.
But I think it's better. Or it's just like I just want to do better. It's like I'm sorry.
You go these two components. I like
brand new.
or I think this one is
I love working Angular.
it's
Yeah.
Let me put this in.
So I'm getting into one of the. But Sebastian and Nate are also organizers here, so this is our first 2016 year. So here, sorry, January. I'm gonna kind of slip a little bit, but I don't fear.
Maybe. Let's see.
But we have so tonight obviously is the EmberSherpa, so we're all good.
Let's play.
And then February 23rd, I think it is. We just got this one scheduled tonight. Somewhere it's 3D, so it's 3D in the browser. So that should be a really cool. We have a really. And then in March we're looking to do a JavaScript control development. They're trying to come and set up, because they've got a nice little sort of patio area, so we can be inside if it's cold or whatever. And then I think Ian, who's the other co-organizer, he's not here tonight. He's not feeling well. He's looking for a EmberJs to get scheduled at some point. So, welcome everybody. Does anybody have any announcements or anything you'd like to share? Jason?
Welcome to Bronzo. Thanks for coming out. For those who are not familiar with us, we're a marketing company. Number one provider. We're really nice. Recently acquired by normally I would say we have lots of jobs, sorry. You may hear from some other lesser
Okay, I'm not a lesser recruiter. Thank you, Jason, for that intro. I'm Melissa Crosby, I'm sitting here from the legal events provider, but now I'm actually at Ember, so still at the now. But and I'm in downtown Raleigh. It's a startup. Last Monday when I started, we're 36 strong now. But we are looking to add to our front-end team, and actually have Frank here with me tonight as well, so he can speak to you about the opportunities and technical and stuff. And also, if you know any salespeople, we're looking for our sales team as well, and entry level. And then I do have a graphic designer spring or summer internship as well. So my email is very simple, Melissa@endo.com.
Speaking of competitive jobs, anybody looking for somebody, low job, that's available?
Oh, so if any of you guys are interested in Ember or using Ember, I can tell you most of the Raleigh Durham area. So Citrix is hiring, Interactive Intelligence is hired. Sort of hiring. Who else?
E2, no, is it? Q2 banking?
Q2E banking is hiring
Q2E.
remote devs, and they have Torrent on their team. If you guys are interested in and there's also Triangle Ember Meetup if you guys want to join too.
Cool. If nobody else has anything, there's got to be something that somebody's got. It's been like 3 months since we've been together. All right.
Can we do a show of hands of like who uses what? Like React. Who uses React? Okay. Who uses Angular? Okay. And then Ember? Okay, Ember, everybody else. It's like, okay. I guess, okay, about people who are not doing JavaScript full time. Okay, that makes sense. That's where the gap is. Okay, cool. So can I use this?
Sure.
Hello. This work? Oh. Okay. So much louder. I feel like it's an echo. Okay, I'm just gonna turn it off. Okay, so this talk is gonna be. Let me just switch to my talk first. Where's the share screen? Share screen. Is it? Oh, it's recording, right?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So this talk is going to be. It's something. Ember is something I care about very strongly, but also this talk is going to be something that is going to be maybe a little bit different. But because I'm, I think, the only person that's speaking today, I would like it to be really open. So if you have if there's anything that you're curious about, please feel free to ask me. Like I actually want this to be an opportunity for people to like get whatever questions they have about Ember to be answered. So I'll go through my talk, and then if at any point you have a question, feel free to stop me, and I'll stop and I'll talk about that, and I'll continue going on. Or we can go to the end, and then at the end they can ask me questions. But I want this to be like an opportunity for everyone to get whatever questions they have about Ember to be like resolved. And see if, yeah, so we can see like once we finish, we can see what we're gonna do after. Okay, So usually people say don't start a talk by talking about yourself, but I have to start talking about myself because it's part of my story. It's part of the story that I want to tell. So my name is Mankovski, and what I do is help people learn Ember. So this was on Saturday in Raleigh. We had a Global Ember Meetup that was hosted live in Raleigh, and we had I think about 15 beginners just sitting around in a circle asking me questions about Ember, and then we went and did like a little workshop, and I kind of walked them through Ember. So that was really cool. But before I started doing Ember, I did Python and PHP and CSS and JavaScript. I think this thing is on. Oh, that's all right. Okay. So, all right. So this is my background before doing Ember. I also did a lot of WordPress, and I did a lot of like decent-sized projects. So 25 to 50 grand is not the biggest WordPress project, but I did a lot of like, decent-sized projects. One thing that really bothered me about doing WordPress was that a lot of times clients wanted projects to be over. Like they wanted the features to be delivered and just kind of move on from it. And that was really that was very frustrating for me because I really would like for my clients to care about the work that I do. And the reality is that most of the time they didn't. And I really wanted to do big things. That for me was something, after doing a bunch of projects where we're kind of going from one thing to another, doing a big project seemed very appealing. So one of the reasons why I wanted to do big projects is because big projects give you an opportunity to grow. You can actually evolve, like you can learn from your past mistakes. You have an opportunity to assess, what you could have done better, and it gives you space to actually grow as a developer, grow as a as a person. One of the other things is that I wanted my respect and consideration for quality to be valued. I really wanted people that I work with to think and give me space to do a really good job. And when I started thinking about, after doing a bunch of PHP projects, when I started thinking about what I want to do next, I started to realize at one point that all my projects kind of ended in a similar circle. I would build something, and then at one point the project would actually require us to write like a really large JavaScript thing. And then it became apparent to me that more and more applications are being written in JavaScript. And at that point, I realized that what I wanted to do is I wanted to work on apps. Like I didn't want to do sites anymore. I wanted to work on applications. And but the problem I realized for me was that I didn't actually know how to build single-page apps from scratch. Like I didn't know how to write complex JavaScript. I didn't know how to do application architecture. And that's when I came across Ember. So this is Ember from this is Wayback Machine of Ember's front page from July 19, 2013. So the cool thing about this is that this is a framework for creating ambitious web applications. It's the same tagline that we use today, so it hasn't changed. The purpose of Ember has been the same for since day one. So for me, when I saw that, I was thinking, okay, so I'm thinking about what my future is going to be for the next couple of years, and this to me looks like a framework that is setting out to work on doing big things. That seems really appealing to me. One of the other things that I promised was conventions. So I didn't know how to build applications, single-page apps. I didn't know how to do it well. So having conventions to me seemed like a way, kind of like Rails, but not JavaScript. I mean, not Rails, like not Ruby on Rails, but like actual Rails, like actual guide on how to get from, from where I am to where I want to be. And it seemed to offer best practices. And best practices in the sense that it's not what I think are best practices. It's not what somebody else on my team thinks best practices, but best practices that are agreed communally as as something to respect and something to follow. That to me appealed very much, considering that when I was working in WordPress, it's people can do some crazy stuff, and it would still be like, well, I think it's a really good thing to do. I'm like, I don't know about that. And so, and one of the other things that seemed appealing to me about Ember is that Ember community seemed to really care about the tooling. We didn't have a lot of tooling back at that time, but tooling was something that was discussed as being extremely important. And so time passed. I fixed this because that movie was released in 2015, so I fixed it with my Photoshop skills. And so what do we have today? So Ember today is a framework that has consistent tooling. It has community solutions that we agree on. And I've been doing some really big projects. So these are some of the projects that I've worked on. I've worked a lot more, but these are kind of the ones that I've spent most time with. And I'm really happy with the progress that I made in 2.5 years. But why am I here? Why am I talking about this? The interesting thing, I had a really interesting opportunity recently. So over the last 3 months, I've had the interesting, very kind of unexpected luxury of working with 100 Ember developers. And in a process, I saw about 80 apps. And I saw some things, some wonderful things. And so I had a judge who uses Ember to build applications for his work, to streamline processes at his work as an acting judge. I met people who've never written applications before, and they were using Ember to build apps that I personally found very impressive. If somebody who's never written an app before, and they have a fully functional application, that to me is extremely impressive. And I met some designers who were doing some really amazing UI stuff without really, people who never written code or who never considered themselves to be programmers, but they used Ember to create really awesome user experiences. So that blew my socks off. So how is this possible? How is it possible that a framework that is built for doing really big things and enables people in this way? And I think it comes to tooling. If you've seen this post, there's been a lot of talk lately about the state of JavaScript and state of where JavaScript needs to go. And one of the common threads is that our tooling needs to get better. Funny thing is that this is not an Ember problem. We don't have this problem in Ember community because we have Ember CLI. So for the last 2.5 years, we've been evolving. So Ember CLI started from a project that was called Ember App Kit. It was exploration of what Ember tooling might look like, and it took about 6 months to 6 to 8 months, maybe a year, to get Ember App Kit to be to a point where we understand enough. We've made enough applications that with Ember App Kit that we now can build this Ember CLI tool that we're going to use for streamlining our process. So Ember CLI out of the box right now includes Babel.js, which allows us to transpile ES6 to ES5, and it gives us all the fancy new features. It allows you to, with one line, like command line install, you can install Sass and less or PostCSS. You have to run a separate command line for each, otherwise that'd be awkward. So we have, in our development environment, we have live reloading, and we use Watchman, which will automatically rebuild all the files, and which will trigger the rebuild of the files, which will then trigger a live reload. We have built-in testing. Ember uses QUnit by default, and you can add Mocha, and you can run these tests in a browser, on CI server, and terminal. These things, Ember QUnit comes with a project default when you start a new project. We have Ember CLI deploy, which is a deployment tool, which allows us to do basically say Ember deploy, and then specify the environment, and it will deploy the application to that environment. And we have generators. So basically, anything that you would need in the Ember app, if you need to generate a component or a route or a controller, you can do it with generators, and it will automatically generate. It will generate a basic test for you that you can use to write tests for that piece of code. So all of this is enabled by conventions. We have one of the things that Ember CLI does for us is when you run Ember new and you specify the app name, it will actually build a default project structure for you. So I think when I have these pairing sessions with these developers, if I didn't have this, I think I would not actually be able to, our sessions wouldn't be very useful. Usually what would happen, when I get into a call and somebody says, oh, I would like to get help with the following problem, I can actually help them. I can help them within 45 minutes. We can go to three different problems, and I can actually have, I can move them along significantly. If we didn't have this in place, I think that'd be really difficult, because then I'd have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how the person has something set up, and I would imagine I'd waste a lot of time doing that. One of the other things, so this is one of the elements that, one of the things that Ember this is one of the architecture things that Ember brought to the conversations of what we need to do, how we should be building our Ember applications, is the focus on the URL is being important. In the Ember community, the URL of your application is a starting point for building your app. And we created Router.js, which is now, which shipped with the first version of Ember, but it's now being used by React Router as well. I believe Angular was looking at it. I'm not sure if they end up using it in the end, but somebody might know. Who knows? Angular 2, do you guys know if it's using, if Angular 2 is using Ember's router? Anybody? Yeah, React Router is using it. It was a fork of. Angular 2. Yeah. Angular CLI is an add-on to Ember CLI. And so one of the other things that Ember takes very seriously is upgrades. So one of the things that I saw in the process of talking to, pairing with 100 developers is that everybody tends to be on one of the later versions of Ember. So if anything, most people so we right now are at 2.3 is stable, and the last version that people were on were 1.13 something. Most people, I don't think I've paired with anybody that had anything older than that. So Ember community is really, we're very close together in terms of versions of Ember that we use. Partially, I think, because being up to date with Ember is actually very easy. Well, relative to, I guess, other frameworks, but we have the upgrade path to upgrade an Ember app. What you'll do is you'll get some deprecations, you remove those deprecations, and then that's how you'd move from version to version. One of the things that makes Ember really interesting to me personally, and I think is what enables people to do some really complicated things, especially even if they don't have a lot of experience, is focus on primitives. So a primitive is the simplest element of a programming language, according to this wonderful Wikipedia snippet. And this is to me is a primitive. So basically, we have if helper, which will display hello world if friendly is true. It allows us to abstract the mechanism that checks the is friendly value behind the primitive, and then it allows us to work with the primitive and with abstraction, and gives us an easy way to compose these primitives into the app that we want to create. The interesting thing is that if you wanted to refactor that piece of code to do something a little bit more complicated, like if you wanted to make it animate, all you have to do is just replace if with liquid if, and now now that HTML will animate in or out depending on what the state of is friendly is. So simply by changing if to liquid if, you now have that little thing is going to animate. You can do, so each helper is another interesting example. So each is a way of iterating over a list of items and displaying the, iterating a list of items and rendering the HTML. And so in this case, we're going to iterate over a list of items, and we're going to display a title for each item. So if you were to imagine a scenario where you have an app that has something like, has at some point 10,000 data points that we need to display in a list, if you use something like this, you would end up having to create 10,000 DOM elements for each one of these items, and that's, that might not be what you want because your app would be really slow. So we have this thing which is a Ember collection, which is a component that you can use to replace each helper, and what it will do is it abstracts all the complexity related to figuring out how many items the user can see and only displaying those things. So it will handle, so what it does, it allows it to implement this kind of a DOM reuse thing where you only have, where in your app, you only rendered the number of DOM elements that the user can actually see. And then as you scroll, it will automatically handle replacing the elements in those, like replacing the DOM elements and reusing the DOM for you at like 60 frames per second. And so, as you can see, with very little refactoring, you can do something really that would otherwise be very complex. And these concepts scale very well. Another example of this is this modal dialog. Modal dialog is provided by Ember modal dialog component or add-on. And modal dialog is a component that was created fairly recently. So as we were going through Ember version 1, we're at version 2.3 now, but in Ember 1, there was a lot of confusion around how we should handle modals. Because everything we tried, there was several problems, but one of the problems was that our Ember wasn't evolved enough to make it simple enough for us to build the kind of API that we wanted to build. And so over time that like Ember evolved, and our understanding of how to handle modals in Ember evolved, and it allowed us to simplify modals to this really simple interface. So there are obviously options that you can provide to this thing, but to show a modal, all you have to do is render this block component and specify the content. So when this thing renders, it will show a pretty modal. In most cases, that's not what you want, because you want to be able to toggle like whether or not the modal is visible. And the way you would do that is as simple as just wrapping the modal in an if statement. And if is showing set to true, is showing modal set to true, then the modal will render. If it's set to false, then it won't render. And then when it toggles, the value toggles, it will show a high automatically and handle all the complexity around animating that behavior and knowing exactly where you should put. So this is what I'm trying to show. So one of the things interesting about Ember's process is that the way that Ember community works is that there are a lot of people who want to solve problems well, and this would for me is very rewarding after having my experience with WordPress. So being an Ember community, there's a lot of people who want to find a really good solution to that problem, and they will try to solve this problem. And when they think they have a good solution, what they'll do is they'll wrap that solution in an add-on, and they'll make that add-on available for the community to use. And if community agrees that this is a good solution, you can then make it into possibly the Ember core, or it might always remain an add-on, depending on if it's appropriate. But this add-on ecosystem, I think is something that's been developing for about a year, but we have now almost 2,000 add-ons. Ember add-ons, they range in complexity. Some provide a lot of functionality. So like some provide like an Ember modal. Another one, like Ember Data, is actually Ember's persistent layer, which is called Ember Data, is an add-on. and it's available. You can install it. Add-ons are installable through npm, and so we have about 2,000 of them now. And we try to, as much as possible, realign. Like if there's a good solution, we'll try to encourage people to have one add-on that solves a particular problem really well. So deployment, Ember CLI deploy is an example of that. We had 3 different implementations, and then there was an effort to realign those to have only one library that handles deployment in Ember. You can create a skeleton for an Ember add-on in the same way that you would create an app. So you just run Ember add-on and specify the name, and it will just lay out the add-on for you. And all you have to do is just add the functionality of the add-on, and then Ember will know how to make your features that are provided by the add-on available inside of the application when you install it into the app. So how did all of this happen, right? Like how is it that that JavaScript community is now realizing that there is this problem that we have which is related to tooling, and how is it that Ember actually doesn't have this problem now? And I think the answer to that is the fact it is just this consistent gradual effort over time. And Ember's goal is essentially to continue to do this. And the goal of Ember framework is to be there for a long time and to be a tool that is going to get better with time. And it's not going to be perfect, and there's going to be things that we're going to need to improve, but we can improve, and we will improve gradually and over time. One of the things that Ember, I think, does extremely well is learn from others. We have, I think one of the first examples of learning from another framework was when Ember was forked, when Sprout Core was forked to become Ember. Yehuda Katz and Tom Dale went out and basically did code reviews on a bunch of apps that were using Backbone, and to look for patterns that they could use to figure out what are the things, how should this framework that we're creating that's supposed to make building applications a lot easier, what features should it have? And one of the things that they found with Backbone is that a lot of applications were nested UIs. So you have like a nav and a sidebar, and those things remain the same, but the content changes. But one of the things we found also is that, for example, in Backbone, rendering, inserting that template into the DOM and tearing it down is actually a lot of work. So there's a lot of boilerplate they had to type in to actually make that work. And so that's one of the things that Ember strives to do is we took that nested UI and we hooked it up to a routing, but we made all of that rendering of the template and binding of the events automatic, so you don't have to do it by hand as you would with Backbone. Then the next opportunity was Angular, and Angular was an interesting one because what Angular did really, really well, Angular 1, it made it really easy for a developer to start working with Ember. Oh, sorry, with Ember. with Angular. It was a lot easier than it was with Ember at the time, and so that kind of nagged a lot of Ember people for a while, and that's what kind of pushed us to make our user onboarding experience a lot easier. Directives are a really powerful feature of Angular. I don't think Ember intentionally took things from Angular, took directives from Angular. We did create Ember components about the same time, and they have kind of similar features. But Ember community is very conscious of what's happening in other frameworks to see what kind of things can we borrow, and integrate into our framework. And I think that the best, most recent example of doing that is React. So React, when it was introduced, it changed things. It changed how we think about applications. It changed how we think about how we can write performant applications. So one-way data flow was a concept that React introduced freshly into the minds of web developers, and it showed the performance benefits combined with DOM diffing or diffing in the virtual DOM. And so, like, Ember community needed to do something. We couldn't just allow like React to kind of eat our lunch after doing all the work that we did with Ember. And so, about 6 to 8 months ago, we had a new rendering engine which borrowed a lot of ideas. This new rendering engine was merged into Ember, and it's now available in Ember. It became available in Ember 1.13. And the cool thing about how Ember got this new rendering engine is that a lot of companies get it basically for free. If you had an Ember app and you removed all the deprecations that you had that prevented you from upgrading to 1.13, then when you upgraded to 1.13, your app just worked. So you didn't have to figure out how to integrate React into your Angular app, or you didn't have to figure out how to integrate React into Ember app. You just got it as an upgrade, and that's Ember's goal. Ember's goal is to allow us to build large applications over time, and know that we're not working ourselves into a corner. That we're not going to be like embarrassed by the fact that our application is not able to use the features that we know are actually good practices. And one of the other things that I think Ember really tries to make a lot of effort to be a good citizen. Like we try to do what we have to do to contribute to the development of standards that are going to benefit everyone. And we do this by being early adopters. We had promises very early on, about 2.5 years ago. In the original router, we already had promises, and we had to use a polyfill because promises were not available in all browsers. But we've been testing promises to make sure that browsers get the feedback that they need for the time when they're going to be ready to implement them. And the same goes for ES6. We've been using ES6 for almost 2 years now because we started an Ember AppKit, and at that time we were using just filers because Babel didn't exist. And one of the Ember core team people actually was the one that suggested, that kind of nudged the guy who created ES 526, 65, right? And thank you. And the other one was ES Next, I think. He basically kind of nudged them to merge into one project, and now we have Babel.js. So let's look forward with this guy on the ladder. One of the things that I think one of the really cool features that's coming down for Ember, and I think this is where Ember's work is paying off, because I think it's really difficult for other frameworks to do it in the same way. But it's called engines, which makes it possible for us to take a part of an Ember app and package it as an add-on, and then you can take an entire app, package it as an add-on, and install it into an app. So you can basically take a huge app that is that has like 20 different sections. You can break them up and then make them separate add-ons, and then have one app that aggregates all those things together. But what it does, it allows you to work on these features separately. And the other thing it allows us to do is, when you work on these features separately, you can then inject them into your application as a component, or you can mount it as a section of the app. I think that's pretty awesome, because one of the things that it allows us to do is it allows us to have common solutions on a much higher scale, at a much higher level. This, in a way, is what Ember's been working for. It's been working for being at the level of abstraction that would allow us to do this kind of thing, and have tooling that would allow us to do this kind of thing. The next thing that the thing that's actually, one of the other features that's ready, almost ready, like the code is ready, it's just being tested now, which is Ember's server-side rendering implementation, and it's intended to be progressive enhancements for the 99%. for all the Ember developers, not for some people who did their application properly, but for every Ember developer. And Ember Fast Food, you started as basically like a node server that will render your app on the server side and it will spit it out to the browser. And the last thing, which is, I think this, I don't know exactly when this is going to land, but at some point we probably will have one-way data flow by default. So to use two-way data flow, you're going to have to use two-way bindings. You're going to need to opt in to that. So this will probably be like Ember 3 sometime in the future, but we are moving in that direction because it has. We learned from React that this is actually a really great thing to do. So what does all of this mean to you? Or for you? I don't know what it means to you, that's a different thing. But so there's a lot of companies that are adopting Ember. A lot of big companies adopting Ember. And you really, one of the things that I found out when we were, Tracy already mentioned this, but at the Global Ember Meetup, we found out there's at least 5 companies that are looking to hire Ember developers right now. And 5 local companies that are looking to hire. These are the only ones that I know, and I've only been here for a couple of days. But there's a lot of companies that are looking to hire on jobs.emberjs.com. There's new job postings coming in on a daily basis, and these are really good jobs. One of the other things that's interesting, when I say good jobs, I mean well-paying jobs. but one of the things that's interesting about Ember is that a lot of these companies are not hiring one developer; they're hiring lots of developers because Ember projects is done by groups of people, and so if you see job posting, most likely that company is not just trying to hire one person. So all of this was just to kind of say, like, what is your 5-year plan? Where do you want to be? Because if you're the kind of person that wants to think about your future, then Ember is a really good framework for that. Because Ember is a framework that plans to be around and plans to be the right tool for the job 5 years from now, as it is today. So choose a framework that delivers, and choose EmberJS. That's my presentation. So, so do you guys can I answer questions now? Any hate? I don't know. What do you guys think? Oh yeah, yeah.
So I was at a presentation 6 months ago, and there was a concept of angle-drive components.
Yeah.
Is that still something that is very around? Is that still something that is used in Ember, or is it still
so today we still have the handlebars brackets, but the angle brackets will be the one-way data flow by default version of components in Ember. So right now there was a few dependencies that needed to happen. We have a new project layout that's coming in. So there's a pod structure, because right now the way that projects are laid out in Ember, they're laid out by type. And so one of the things that we're looking for in the process of preparing for engines, one of the things that we needed to do was get engines figured out. So this idea of being able to embed an app inside of an app, and then once we figure that part out, use that learning to figure out exactly how pod structure is going to work. So pod structure is based on feature as opposed to type. So you have so for example, if you have an account section, you'll have account directory, and inside that account you'll have a route.js file. You have a component.js file. You have a component template.hbs file. So that's a pod, and so you can have them. They can be nested, and then you can take that pod and you can turn it into an engine. So all of those things kind of needed to be finalized before we had a clear enough picture of what angle brackets are going to look like. So we're now getting much closer to actually having angle brackets, which are going to be called some like glimmer components, and they're going to be a one-way data flow by default. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so you're working on the app now, right? Like, do you work on the app?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm assuming, but so like, what sections, like, what kind of features does your app have?
A little bit than that.
Oh, I see. So, so a typical app will consist of different sections. For example, you might have an enterprise app that has reports, right? And so reports usually is pretty like these sections tend to be self-contained. Like they use they use functionality across different sections, but they tend to have like kind of defined functionality. So you want to be able to, like, in the reports, you want to have a list of reports, you want to be able to query them in a particular way, but it's kind of self-contained. And so ideally what you would do is, actually this is really important for companies like Yahoo that has their ads admin interfaces written in Ember, and they have a huge product, like it's a really huge application. And they might have something like 70 or 100 developers, Ember developers working on one app. And so instead of having something that has 3,000 files or 5,000 files, what they would like to do is have that same thing split up across, let's say, 15 sections or 15 repos. So every developer only needs to work with the part of the application that they're working on right now. And so that has, like, one of the benefits is that it makes your tests a lot easier to run, and it makes it easier for you to just work with your immediate people, because you're not checking out the entire project every time you're trying to make any change. So that's the reason why Yahoo hired one of the Ember team people to work with them to basically kind of advocate for their interests within Ember project, to particularly enable them in this particular use case. But I think engines are actually really powerful. If you think about the idea, so we have Discourse is a forum software that's written in Ember. So one of the things that we want to do is say, okay, I have an Ember app. I would like to add a forum to it. So I'm going to install the forum add-on, Discourse forum add-on, into my app. I'm going to mount it on the forum URL, and then it's just going to speak to Discourse API. But it's going to be part of my app. It's not going to be a separate application. It's going to be one application. And so if you imagine doing the same thing with a store, like if you have a forum and you have the ability to buy things. The cool thing about how Ember works is that you can then, it gives you the APIs necessary for you to be able to mix the features together. So if you wanted to, for example, say, like, one engine provides products and the other engine provides users, you could say, okay, let me display on the user's account page in the forum all the products that they purchase. Those APIs are built into Ember. That's where all the work for the last 2.5 years has been kind of put into. So that's really exciting now, because what we're seeing is the work that's been very, very invisible, right? Because you're thinking, like, from outside of the Ember community, you're kind of thinking, like, well, what has Ember people been up to, like, for the last 2.5 years? We've been, like, laying the foundation, and then now it's like we're starting to reap the benefits of all that work.
So our engine's kind of like just web components. Like, are they going to take advantage of the web component, like API?
So who's speaking? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
There's engines and web components. I mean, are they like borrowing from web components? Or are they going to, like, use the web component API? Or
so I think there are some. So Ember's components are closest proximity to a web component, but an engine can be a component. So it's just that I think that Ember is starting to, like, in the process of building the apps, we're starting to find that there are certain things that are missing that are not possible with web components, for example. So, like, some of the features that we're adding, there's no parallel in web components. So we're kind of like, we're in a way, in some ways, possibly like ahead of the ideas of how these components should be used. And I guess we'll see what actually happens there. But because we've been using these components quite heavily, and we're adding new APIs to components to make it more. One of the things that's happening recently is, like, ability to compose components, and that has a whole different meaning that's even new to the Ember community. So Ember is evolving in really interesting ways. That's why I think it's a really great time to. I mean, It's always great to have to be involved, but but I think it's I don't know, it's really big. What would you like to see? Huh? Ember new? But it doesn't really. I mean, it's just what you see in the image. But you know, just minus npm.
Could you show us a controller? I'm just curious.
Controller. I might want to. Let me show you an actual app. So controllers actually don't. Controllers don't have as much of a significance anymore because most of the. Let me see if I have an app that I can. Sites. What can I show? I'm trying to look at what I can show from here. This is a pretty. I mean, this app only actually has one section, but it's a pretty large section. So that's a route. So a controller here looks like this. There's a lot of query params. This is actually a pretty hefty example because it this app this particular app is it's charting tool to visualize data about that's captured from energy sensors, like and so it's a basic visualization tool with like a whole bunch of query mechanisms. Like one of the things that they wanted to do is, so they had this previous version of the Ember app. They had the ability to save the query, so they would like persist the query in the database. So one of the things they wanted to do was replace all of that with query params. So the entire state of the application is serialized into query params. So there's a lot of work around. So there's a bunch of query params that are defined on the controller. So most of the work that the controller does these days is related to query parameters. We still have the only way to configure query params in Ember right now is the controller. But there's an effort to the trajectory that we're on right now is to eliminate controllers in favor of routable components. Let's see if there's a good example of an app.
So in the future, what would right now be organization components, models, routes, controls,
So it's just going to be components, routes, and those going away, and templates, and services. Yeah.
So does that mean
I'm sorry?
for any model abstraction,
It's an add-on now, so you can use it or not use it. Depends on whether or not if your app is has like a RESTful API, then EmberData is pretty good at that.
You still have to model the front-end data. Is there like a other way to do that? Other things like turning off, like you want to knock out Ember. It's nice to have to model the front-end data. Like you have to say that the name is a string. Date. Like now you have to model the models in Ember.
Right.
Like automatically do that, like a JSON object.
Yeah, the thing is that that's a bit. The thing that's a bit I think misleading about EmberData is that EmberData is optional. a lot of people choose to use it. So basically what Ember Data does is it's a way for you to say, it's a way for you to say that, that I have this kind of for example, a client, and it has these properties. So if I'm going to say save this client, then it's going to know how to take that client and convert that to a payload. So what it's actually, yeah, so what it's actually doing is it's actually doing quite a lot of things for you. Like it's, but if you don't want that, you can just make AJAX requests. It's just you have to serialize everything by hand.
Yeah, but okay, does the data need to be modeled to have a two-way binding? So it makes sense. Like anyway, you say across your object and start manipulating it.
Oh, I
You
see.
have to model your data before you set up two-way binding. Like not
You don't have to. So it depends on. You don't have to model it. So you don't have to describe what your data looks like. So if you want to, the only caveat to that is that you have to, if you want to be able to do, if you want to be able to view data an object and have the Ember reflect that automatically, there's some scenarios where you have to use a certain kind of object. So you have to use an Ember object as opposed to just a regular hash. But the way that it's dealt with in the new version of Ember, Glimmerized version of Ember, is that it's easier to just, a lot of times you can create a new object. So there's a bit of a, you can create a new object and then it will just know, in the same way with React, like if you give it a new object, it will basically know that it needs to update the DOM or not. The only difference with, there's a bit of a, like right now, because Ember is very often in transition. So Ember, Rails in a way is a really good model for Ember because Rails has been in evolution for a while, but it's now like stabilized. So I think something similar is going to happen with Ember, but Ember has been evolving for a while. So one of the transitions that it's in right now is that we're still trying to figure out is that with React introducing one-way data flow, like how far do we want to go? And I think with Ember tends to take the middle ground. It tends to not go for one extreme or the other. So I think what will happen is we are moving towards having functional templates. So we have functional helpers and templates. So if you have, so our helpers will be functional, but they will still have some state. So they're not going to be purely they're not going to be purely functional. So Ember will always exist in this kind of dichotomy because I think there's strength in being the middle ground, not necessarily adhering to one extreme or the other. So I'm curious, how many people are more curious about Ember now than they were before? Can I get a show of hands? Oh, nice. Nice. Okay, I succeeded. Okay. Well, go ahead.
So, getting started, what were some of the biggest hurdles that you ran into? Like, if someone here were to pick up Ember, what would you have liked to have known when you started?
Well, I started 2.5 years ago, so we didn't have a lot of stuff.
Well, I think people
yeah.
you're introducing
Yes.
now.
So I can tell you what. So I paired with 100 people, right? And so I can tell you what that was like. So one thing that's really interesting about pairing with these people is that one thing that I didn't see is random questions. People don't have we don't have. So there's it seems like there's a process of building an app. So it's about so let's say it's this long. This is how measure what it takes to build an app. Then everybody is at 80%, and there's 20% that is unknown, and so or uncertain. So it's it hasn't been well documented or something. And so what happens? A lot of people ask those questions. So what's really interesting is that people don't ask me I don't get all kinds of questions. I get a certain kinds of questions. So I think we've actually done a pretty good job at providing documentation to get you really far in and be able to do it. And then what gets tricky is, and this is where it's really important to have community, is that you want to be able to ask questions. That's extremely important. You want to be able to, if you get stuck, you want to have some feedback. And because a lot of times, if something isn't working, you're not able to find information, what's missing is that you're missing that piece of knowledge that you need to go solve that problem, and that can come from the community. But you know, I'm happy to say that that subset of problems is fairly small. There's change. There is a change that's happening in regards to because the concepts that React introduced are pretty new, so people are still learning them. So there's still that. So one of the things that I'm doing a lot these days is explaining to people like how to do. So in Ember, it's called data down, actions up, which is like you pass data into a component, but if you want to manipulate the state that you passed in, instead of mutating it, you just trigger an action that goes to the context and then mutates the original data. So that's called data down, actions up. And so we're you know, there are a lot of people who got it, but we're still explaining that idea to people. What else? Can I get an idea from someone who is like, are there any problems? Doesn't have to be anything to do with Ember, I'm just curious. Because I know when I was coming to meetups, I would have like, I was working on this thing and I'm really freaking stuck. Like, are there anything that you're really stuck on right now? Does it have to be Ember? I'm just curious what those things are. Can somebody say like something they were working on today that they got stuck on? Nobody's stuck? That's good.
One of the big idea in specific problem that for organizations that have a bigger back end, enterprise back end, how does something like Ember has to a Rails application? How would something like Ember help with that?
I think one of the biggest wins with combining Ember with traditional apps is that, but I think that's a single page app solution, which is you get to simplify your backend code, and it allows you to focus the problems related to user experience in one place. You don't have to. You can then think about your backend and your front end as two separate problems. I think that actually, in a lot of ways, that simplifies the problem a lot, because you can be good at both things, and I think that's what Ember. That's where the single-page apps shine, is that you can do a really good user experience and you have a really good API. You don't have to mix those two things. I think one of the biggest shifts for people, and it's evident in the fact that that if you look at, for example, Node ecosystem, most frameworks don't have most Node frameworks are not API only, right? They're most of them, like, so if you look at like sales. Trails, or whatever it's called, sales, trails, and other frameworks like that, they all kind of try to mirror Rails, in that they're server-side rendered with controllers and that kind of stuff. But what they're not is pure API implementation. So I think what's not happening still is that we don't have that Node, but that clear distinction is not happening. Some people who do a lot of Ember see the distinction very clearly. Because what happens when you have an app that you refactor from being server-side rendered and being like a regular Rails app, and you refactor it into an Ember and a Rails app, or like an Ember and Rails API, is that you see how much code you remove from Rails and how much better you feel about the server-side code that you have. It's a different. But then one of the really cool things that happens is that if you say using something like JSON API, which gives you standards for interacting with the API, you can actually remove a lot of code from the front end, because you can just there's a lot of like gluing together of the code that just kind of disappears because you're working with standards. That I think is really cool, because if you're building a new feature, all you have to do is just define new models on the front end, define new models on the back end, and those things know how to talk to each other.
So architecturally, it sounds like it's a traditional app that's got one together, ASPs, Java, or Rails, ERBs. They really do need to separate to the API node and comments. It's different places that connect together.
Yeah, well, luckily you don't have to. It's not a big. step. You can build your API and still have your application working. Like one of the projects, this charting project is written in Lift, which is Scala, yeah. And so all the people that used to work with it left, so nobody knows how to maintain Lift anymore. And so it's like, so everyone's like, what can we do? Huh? What can we do to not have to touch Lift at all, right? and so a lot of the work is building the API stuff. Is like APIs kind of know how to do this. We built the API thing, but they didn't touch the server-side rendered app for a long time until this whole charting tool was complete. So when that whole tool was complete, they just like disabled one view and then just replaced it with Ember. So for that one view, they're just rendering Ember. I would do like an introduction to Ember thing, but it takes 3 hours and I have to drive to New York today. So so I don't think it's going to work. But I think we're going to come back. We're going to come back. So the Global Ember Meetup is going to come back, I think, in about 6 months. We had 50 people the Global Ember Meetup is Ember Meetup that we do every 3 weeks, and it happens on the internet. But one of the things that we're doing now is we're combining local meetups and global meetups. So we're hosting it here in Raleigh, and it was streamed to the internet, and people from the internet were giving talks into the Raleigh audience. So it's a really cool event. And we're coming back again probably about maybe 6 months from now, so do look out for us.
Thank you, folks, for coming out. As always, Bronto, they're amazing hosts. This is your first meetup here. They're not all like this. They're close, but Bronto does the best. So, when is it, February 23rd? Yes, February 23rd, 3D, the browser, and interactive intelligence. So, thanks for coming out. We'll see you there. Feel free to hang out, and I think there's more pizza and stuff.